Okay, it's been a little bit since I've done a video with my tiny portable whiteboard. So I'm bringing the tiny portable whiteboard back. And today I'm talking about bottom line entry to different aquatic sports. So what do I mean by bottom line entry? What are kind of, in my experience and or in the presence of someone who I'm like, there's a sport and I'm at the scene and I'm like, you know what, I decided I don't want to do that. I think I only have one of those sports, but I'm going to go through a handful, or maybe closer to two handfuls, 1 to 2 handfuls of different aquatic sports and kind of the basic skills required for those sports. And I'm going to rank them from like, from least difficult to most difficult. But really what I'm going to do is talk about each sport and just kind of put them up here. So that's what this video is about. Thank you for tuning in, or if you're about to tune out, thank you for tuning in for what you did tune in for. All right, so let's start with some of the more well-known. I'm going to start with diving. So this includes springboard and platform. So not everybody is familiar with the sport of diving nor the terminology used in diving. Springboard is, if you've ever been to a pool and they have a diving board, that's a diving board. If it bounces when you jump on it, it's a springboard. If it doesn't bounce, it's a platform. That, like in its most simple sense, this is springy, so springboard, and this is just fixed, so it's a platform. This is and then there are different heights. And so if you hear like 1 meter springboard, 3 meter springboard, it's the bounce board at different heights. And the platform, it's a fixed platform at different heights. And people jump off of it. So what's the basic, I'm putting this as the least difficult of all of the sports. I kind of came up with this ranking a little bit ago, like a couple weeks ago, and I've just been sitting on it thinking about, is this right? So that's why I'm doing it like this. Diving is one where, so I competed on my high school swim and dive team. I did not do diving. I have done dives off a diving board. The most simple bottom line dive that still scores points is called a pencil dive. And it's where you hold your body straight, hold your hands at your side, and jump off of a diving board, feet first into the water. Most people can do that, and they don't need to be able to swim the length of the pool. Diving boards are typically at the edge of a pool. So there's jumping in the pool, and you have to be able to swim to the edge of the pool. Usually there are, maybe not as much in diving, but in like high diving, there are usually people in the water to rescue the person if they can't get back to the surface. So there's an element of safety at the pool I worked at and dove off the diving board at. We had lifeguards on duty, and we had a lifeguard station closer to the diving board, and there were diving board specific rules we enforced. So that kind of thing, safety is taken into account from my own experience. But that kind of, so most people can do a pencil dive or some sort of dive. There's 2 basic dives, feet first and hands first. So you just flip the pencil dive round, so enter hands first, vertical, so feet above your hands, make as little splash as possible. That's the other entry. So if you can do a pencil dive, you can do half of the entries in a pool, like kind of thing. And especially in the sport of high diving, which I'll get to a little bit later, that feet first is kind of the most common entry. So it's a really essential role, kind of aspect of diving, the pencil dive, and it actually scores. There was somebody actually did it when I was in high school, and we were all watching, and it actually scored higher than some of the dives that did flips and stuff like that. And I was just like, go figure. Why? Because especially from higher, so like a 10-meter platform that's over 30 feet tall, you're jumping off the pool, it's much easier to just lean into the downwards like energy. And if you lean into that, it's really easy to do a bunch of flips. Might not be graceful when one enters the water, but it's a lot harder to keep oneself rigid and not off balance whatsoever, because that off balance kind of makes it really easy to do the flips. Just lean into the downward motion and do a bunch of flips and enter the pool gracefully. Which is, versus like with the pencil dive, one has to stay rigid. So it actually can score higher, and in my experience, I've seen it score higher than dives with flips. So, yeah. Just because someone might get a Olympic gold medal doesn't mean they're good at the most, a pencil dive, kind of thing. That sometimes, yeah. So it's an interesting sport like that. The next one is going to be pool swimming. So pool swimming, there's 4 main categories, I guess, technically. Freestyle is not technically a stroke, it's front crawl is the stroke. There's backstroke, which is back crawl, butterfly, breaststroke. No, well, and then a combination of those. So there's freestyle, front crawl, backstroke, breaststroke, butterfly, and then a combination of those. So that's kind of the 5th category. We're talking bottom line entry in the sport of swimming. So I competed for a summer league team, which is residential based. So everybody in the community who pays to use the pool, like there's a pool, each household pays for the pool's existence. And if you pay for the pool's existence, you get to use the pool. And everybody who does that for the pool where I grew up, my parents' house, where I live. If you do that, there's 2 teams, a youth team and a master's team. So if you're 18 and under, you get qualify for one team. If you're 19 and over, you qualify for the other. So I competed for over a decade on my summer league team, the youth team. And then in high school, I competed for 4 years, lettered all 4 years, have a letterman's jacket, and was most inspirational one year, coach's award another year, and then swim team captain my senior year. So that's my experience with swimming, competitive swimming, the sport of swimming. And the most basic race, let's see, what's the bottom line that I've done is freestyle. So freestyle technically can be any stroke, even not one of the 4 strokes. I know I have actually swam a stroke called Annie Sargent stroke, which is what our summer league team had a stroke. And I swam that in a race, in a freestyle race, and I was not disqualified. So you can swim however you want. So in its most simple, the classification is freestyle. And our shortest distance was 1 length of the pool, and it was a 25-yard pool. So 25 yards swimming across the pool however you want, just making it to the other side. That's the bottom line entry. A lot of people know how to do this. A lot of people don't know how to do this. But there is as someone who taught swim lessons in combination with lifeguarding full time, so sometimes 80 hours a week, to help pay for college. It was my job. I have not been paid as a swimmer. That has not ever been my job. Swimming is. It does require learning how to swim across the pool for 25 yards. And I've taught adult lessons, I've taught young kids, I've taught kind of the whole youth range. And I'm just going to leave it as, especially breaststroke. Breaststroke's one of the harder strokes to learn. So the freestyle might be easy, but the other strokes might not be. So if we're talking about like full entry to the sport, it's a little bit more difficult than just like for diving. Don't actually do this, but like for example, if you want a 1 meter height, take the dinner table, put it at the edge of a lake, or not the edge of a lake, that's a bad example. Take it to a dock, or the edge of a pool and jump off your dinner table feet first into the pool. Most people can do that, okay? Most people might be able to, if they have the right training, swim 25 yards of a pool, but that does not mean people have had that training or figured it out themselves. Some people are self-taught swimmers. That does exist. But it does require 25 yards is a whole lot further than just jump off a dinner table, put at the edge of a pool into the pool. Feet first. Okay. The next kind of not so well known, but a sport I have competition experiencing is water polo. So this is like swimming, only swimming can be like 20 seconds at a time. depending on how long one's swimming. So like in a swimming race, if somebody swims 25 yards or 50 yards, it's not very long. Water polo is a team sport. There are quarters. Games can be over half an hour. You're not allowed to touch the bottom of the pool. There's not allowed to touch the wall versus like in pool swimming, it starts and ends with touching the wall. Like there's just, also not allowed to touch the bottom of the pool, but you're only in for 20 seconds as opposed to like over half an hour. People are punching each other, grabbing each other, biting each other, scratching each other, trying to push others on out of the water. So you got to be able to do swimming because it's a team sport, moving a ball up and down the pool. So it has this base, like swimming as part of this. But in addition to swimming, need to be able to work as a team, need to be able to tread water, which in water polo is it's called the egg beater kick. I did this 3 seasons with my summer league. So in addition to having the youth and adult team or masters team for swim team, we also had this is our local pool. There was a tennis club, a tennis team, and then there was a water polo team. And I did 3 seasons, but 2 full seasons and 1 partial season with my water polo team. And I think my first season I was 14, if I'm recalling correctly, and then I did it again when I was 16 and 17, and so the summers I was 16 turned 17, 17 turned 18, that kind of thing. And then I also competed on my high school team, which at the time it wasn't considered a sport, so we couldn't actually letter in it. It was considered a club, so we couldn't actually letter in water polo. But we placed 3rd and then 2nd in state when I played on the team. So it was like out of all of the teams in our state, we placed in women's water polo, we placed 3rd when I was a junior and then 2nd when I was a senior, if I'm recalling correctly. I think I got that trajectory right. So we improved, and then so that's my experience with it. It does require, it's far more intense than pool swimming. There's like a combat, but not combat. I think the right word is contact. You have to touch other people to play the sport. That's just the reality of the sport. There's team dynamics, so you need to be able to, instead of just being able to swim and remembering when swimming, one needs to be able to remember the plays and where one needs to be on the quote-unquote field in the pool positioning, what to do if somebody signals or there's a certain whistle, what do you do? It's a far more cognitive, so this requires mental too, but not quite like this. This is the cognitive and physical. It requires intelligence on multiple forms, and this is just kind of like physical and remember your stroke. And there's more to it than that, but this requires that plus a whole lot else, and especially the team dynamics thing. All right, and then the sport that actually requires basic ability to pool swim, basic ability to do egg beater kick and communicate with others, even if it's just one's coach, is artistic swimming. This is unique of the sports on the board because it also requires breath control, so expanding one's lung capacity, because they're upside down in the water. So these have the privilege of one's either horizontal and it's easy to breathe, head's on top of the water when one's swimming, if they're swimming the stroke correctly. And in water polo, head's above water. This is not head above water all the time. So they have to be very high out of the water. So it's like artistic gymnastics, they get to do splits in the air, maybe as they're flipping or on bars or on land. They have to, they don't get the luxury of having something stable. They have water and they have to figure out how to get their legs out of the water without touching the bottom of the pool, without touching anything fixed like in artistic or even rhythmic gymnastics. So it's kind of like top tier in terms of physical prowess and difficulty. What is my experience with this? Kind of more like doing it in ruck swim, so open swim, when the pool's available for usage for whatever use you want. This is kind of like what we do for fun kind of thing, and it requires the basic how to get oneself high out of the water is called an egg beater kick, and I did that for water polo. So artistic swimming was, once you have that kind of base, this becomes a whole lot easy. I struggle, I have asthma, so the lung capacity part of this sport has always been very difficult for me. So yeah, this is based on my experience and kind of watching it. So that's the first set. I have 4 more. Up next is high diving. So this